Hello, hello, hello. Hello to everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining me here on the live stream. It is July the 2nd, 2026, just 2 days away from the 250th celebration of America. My name is Chase Oliver. Welcome to the live stream. And we got a lot to talk about today. It's a solo show tonight, no guest, but we will have more guests coming on. Thanks to Eric Foreman last week for coming on and talking about his campaign out in Nebraska. If you're a libertarian candidate for office who would like to have a live stream conversation with the 2024 libertarian candidate for president, just let me know. We'd love to have you on the show. And that doesn't just extend to candidates, that extends to people who have projects going on, who have liberty activism in the works, who want to talk about particular issues. I would love to deep dive with you. So if you want to come on the podcast, feel free to shoot me a DM either on X or on Facebook at Chase Oliver for President. We'd love to start getting more and more guests coming on the show, talking about liberty, talking about the politics of the day, especially as we start steamrolling ourselves towards the 2026 election this November, the midterms. It looks like we got a lot going on this past week, and we're just going to dive right into it. Hello, everybody. I see people are starting to pop in and say hello in the comments. Make sure you are liking this wherever you're watching it. Make sure you're sharing it wherever you're at so more and more people can get their eyes on this live stream. Because like I said, we got a lot to talk about tonight. Mostly focused outwardly, but we do have one major libertarian politics story. Let me just pull that up. Iowa RFK. All right. Let me just pull up the story here, which is, Iowa, which is a great state. Been there plenty of times. Got to campaign there and participate in their state fair. 2 years in a row. I won the Libertarian Party Iowa Presidential Caucus in 2024. Even beat out an Iowan, which I consider pretty awesome. I beat somebody in their home state. But neither here nor there. Iowa is a great state with a great group of libertarians out there. Many of them are wanting to run for office. A couple of them I know, Marco Battaglia and I say that name wrong all the time. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering the word. And then Rick Stewart, two libertarian candidates in Iowa who were both wanting to run for Congress. And right now, this big story in the news out there is that RFK Jr. contacted both of these candidates and tried to pressure them and kind of cajole them with a little quid pro quo to drop out of the race. In his mind, to help the Republican candidate because RFK Jr. is worried about the midterms. He is a part of an administration that has the lowest approval ratings of any presidential administration in modern history, facing a midterm election with a very energized political opposition. And he's worried that every vote is going to count. And the truth is every vote should count, including libertarian votes. Libertarian candidates deserve to be on the ballot in Iowa and everywhere else. And so this pressure campaign to get candidates to drop out, trust me, I am no stranger to that. Having been a candidate for U.S. Senate before, after I caused the runoff, I was heavily encouraged by, let's just say, a certain libertarian-ish kind of maybe senator from Kentucky to endorse Raphael Warnock, and I did not do that. And I'm glad that these libertarian candidates, Marco and Rick, are staying steadfast here and not bowing down. And not even that, exposing the fact that the two-party system is trying to pressure third-party candidates to drop out of races. I think that's a really good thing, and I stand with our candidates in Iowa. I encourage you to support the candidates in Iowa. And, of course, I'd love to have them on the podcast, on the live stream here sometime to discuss this further in detail, to really get in depth about their races, what's important to their communities, why they're running, the issues that are important to Iowans, the issues that are being ignored by the two-party system. And let's try to promote alternatives. Because the truth is both the Republicans and Democrats are pretty damaged goods. You're just going to swing from one pendulum to the other. And you're not going to get real change at the political level if we're going by the same old political parties who are just further polarizing themselves and pushing themselves further away from where most Americans are. So get out and support libertarians in Iowa and push back against this idea that we have to somehow bow down ourselves. to one of the two major parties in order to make a difference in our community. We have libertarians elected all over the country at the local level mostly, and we need to continue building those up and building the party up. That being said, I encourage you to join the Libertarian Party. Go to lp.org and join the Libertarian Party. Join me in the Libertarian Party. I'm a lifetime member of the Libertarian Party, but you don't have to be a lifetime member. You can just be you can be a yearly member at $30 a year, or you can donate a little bit more if you want to see certain causes within the Libertarian Party being pushed forward. So I apologize for that wrong post being duplicated. Yes, I do apologize. That might be happening to some people. It should have been deleted, but it wasn't. I noticed that earlier. My bad. Now, let's get out there and support the Libertarian Party. Go to lp.org and become a Libertarian Party member today. It's something that I encourage people to do the entire time I was running for president. And now that I'm not running for anything, it is no different. I encourage you to join the Libertarian Party. Find the local Libertarian Party in your state, in your community, in your town or county. Join that affiliate, join that state affiliate, and help make a difference in your community's politics by being out there and being an activist for principled libertarian candidates. Let's see. And so that is, how I feel about this Iowa story. I just wanted to get that off the top because that is a Libertarian Party centered story. And I encourage you again to join the Libertarian Party and make a difference, both nationally. Go to lp.org, but of course, also join in your state or your locality so we can start running candidates all up and down the ballot from dog catcher on to president in 2028. We want to make sure we have a full slate of libertarian candidates and ballot access in as many states as possible so we can have a maximum impact on these races. Now, the next two things I kind of want to talk about, I'm a few days late. Pride Month ended a few days ago, you guys. Now it's no longer Pride Month. All the corporate rainbow flags are down. But I didn't want to go ahead because it happened in the last little bit. I wanted to talk about Obergefell v. Hodges passing, the impact of that, the fact that, it was not that long ago, just 20, it was not that long ago that I and millions of LGBTQ Americans were not afforded the right to get married. And, as somebody who, despite what you might read in the media, people think I'm some sort of like crazy, radicalized, but I'm a pretty normal guy. I go to church every Sunday. I am a pretty traditional guy with relationships. And I want to get married one day. And, that used to not be something that was really attainable for me. Even though it was a goal I still wanted and I'd had to fight for that. But, for the last number of years, since Obergefell v. Hodges, that's been something that's been a reality for me. And, I'm in love now. I have a great relationship. I don't know, I would like to one day think that I'm going to get married to somebody that I love and that's now a possibility for me. And I think that's something worth celebrating as a libertarian. Now, I hear the argument out there, a lot of libertarians will give me, which is the state shouldn't be involved in marriage at all. And I understand that principled libertarian message. And I would support that if, there was a movement in this country to actually end marriage completely with a government contract and completely making that a private thing and not having the state involved in marriage at all. And, that for me is, something that is attainable, right? Theoretically, but it's not happening right now. And so as long as this institution does exist, marriage, where you are entering into that contract via a government sanctioned contract, the institution of marriage with all the rights and benefits that come with that, that should be afforded to anybody. That's just basic equality under the law. You don't have to agree with the way something is set up, but as long as it is set up, it should be equal access for anybody. We should not be denying somebody access to that institution. And so I celebrate Obergefell v. Hodges, and I encourage libertarians across the country to do the same. While you can also advocate, hey, if you want gay marriage to not be government sanctioned, then you should want straight marriage to not be government sanctioned, right? And you can make that argument. And I don't think it's going to go very far. But in the meantime, we should just be happy that everybody's being treated equally under the law when it comes to consenting adults wanting to get married. That is it's a good thing. And so I celebrate it. But that being said, it goes right into my next story, which is, based on an LGBTQ couple who have kids. And this is, of course, referring to the story about former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who I have plenty of political disagreements with. Obviously, he's a Democrat. I'm a libertarian. We have lots of political disagreements, but he is a very, visible, high-ranking LGBTQ politician. He's married, has two twins, or well, he has one set of twins, two children, and recently he basically had to be separated from his kids for 24 hours. They had to go stay at their grandparents. He had to be interviewed because some random person made an anonymous report, a random report into the Department of Children's Services, and they have to respond to these calls. But he likened it in the piece that he wrote about this is like the equivalent to swatting, calling the government onto somebody who's not causing any trouble, but for the purposes of trying to harm or traumatize or whatever. And I think it's really wrong what happened to him. And I'm not the only one who says this. People across the political spectrum, when this story came out, condemned this. Even folks like on the right, like Vivek Ramaswamy, put out a tweet condemning it. But of course, people across the spectrum said this is really wrong to be bringing people's kids and to bring the Department of Children's Services into these kinds of things with this kind of like randomized reporting with no merit. Now, I would argue that whoever made that report does need to probably be prosecuted for making a false report. I think that needs to be punished. And I think that whoever reported that, obviously, we know that department knows who did it, and they need to report on that. I think that is just the fair thing to do there. But I also want to bring up the fact that, and this is something that I hope Pete Buttigieg will talk more about in the future, about the power of government just to waltz into your life and to take your kids away from you, sometimes with little to no real evidence. And that's what we see happening all over the country. And, Pete Buttigieg, again, is a very highly visible politician. And he got the highly visible politician version of what happens in this case, where the kids go to their grandparents and you have a polite interview and, and the police say, well, we know this is wrong, but we have to do this, yada, yada. We're just doing it by the book, that kind of a thing. And the truth is most Americans don't have that experience when a false report of abuse is called into DFACS. The children are often forcibly taken from the home and immediately put into the foster care system, which is rife with abuse. There are many great foster parents out there. There are many great people who take care of kids, but there's also just because of the nature of the way that system is, the ability for a lot of abuse to happen there. There is a lot of, with regards to hospitals, this kind of reporting, just rubber stamping reporting without really looking into these issues. I think Spike Cohen and his group, You Are the Power, have exposed a lot of this stuff in the state of Georgia, certainly. I've met people who have been personally affected by this and who Spike and his organization has helped out in these very kind of situations. And I'm hoping that, as terrible as this situation was to Pete Buttigieg and to his husband Chastain, and their kids, I hope this is a wake-up call for him to start being, maybe from the Democratic side of the aisle, to be a little bit more loud about this issue, because we've certainly heard it from the libertarian wings, and I've even heard it from conservative wings, but we don't hear it enough from the folks on the left. And I'm hoping those who want to see, and that doesn't mean that there is not a legitimate need to investigate real abuses out there. There certainly is. But we do need to see reforms to the process to have more oversight, to have more transparency, and to have quicker adjudication so kids aren't stuck outside in the foster care system any longer, separated from parents any longer than they need to be. And so I'm hoping we can see reforms here. But it was pretty terrible to see what happened. Some things so wrong, says Ken Kaplan. Hey, Ken, I know you. The state thinks they own your children. Many people in the government do. Many bureaucrats do think they know how to raise your kids better than you do, which is a problem, which is one of the reasons why I support decentralizing away a lot of the decision-making away from the federal government, putting that in the hands of individuals and at most a local government to work with you. Did I support changing the marriage definition over civil unions, or would it have been fine with civil unions? Well, I am, I'm a Christian myself, and I want to be married. But I think that so long as there is a legal state definition of marriage, they call marriage, it should be called marriage across the board for everyone. Now, if you wanted to change every courthouse marriage that straight people had and call that a civil union, that would be a discussion to have. And I argue that many straight couples would not like that. They consider their courthouse marriage a marriage. And so as long as the state is defining that as a marriage, it shouldn't be any two people. So no, civil unions are a consolation prize, and I would argue a separate but equal interpretation of the law, and would have lost a court challenge eventually, just as Obergefell v. Hodges, won through a court challenge the right for same-sex couples to marry. Yeah, so there. When am I going to continue my political career? Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not running for anything in 2026 now. I was for a short time running for governor, but personal things got in the way of that and other things. So not running for anything this cycle. Future cycles, who knows? But I really am enjoying kind of being on the outside looking in a little bit. But who knows? Maybe I'll run again. Here's the thing. If I run again in 20 years, I'm still younger than Kamala Harris was in 2024. So I got plenty of time to think about running for office again. Thanks for the answer. You're welcome for the answer. But that's kind of how I feel about this whole situation, is that I hope, as terrible as this was for Pete Buttigieg, that it's a wake-up call for him and for a lot of other Democrats, particularly same-sex couples, that the state can really abuse you if we give them the tools and the power to do that. Now, on to the main event. Again, before we get into the main story of the night, I do want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to join me as a member of the Libertarian Party. Go to lp.org. That's lp.org, and join the Libertarian Party today. I also encourage you to support the Patreon out here. I'm going to put more details next live stream about the Patreon. I am changing it up a little bit. Excuse me, I have the hiccups. And give me one moment. That's better. But I will be changing up the Patreon, so I'll be showing that off more a little bit next week. But this week, I encourage you to join the Libertarian Party. Join me in becoming a member of the Libertarian Party at lp.org today. But let's get into the main event. The Supreme Court case that has seemed to melt the brains of Stephen Miller and so many other people on the MAGA right. And that is the Birthright Citizenship case that we saw this week, the decision that we saw coming out of the Supreme Court, where it was a 6-3 decision against Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship, and a 5-4 decision on the constitutionality and of birthright citizenship. Is that something that can be amended through legislation? A 5-4 decision. Kavanaugh, who was part of the 6-3 decision, was in his own opinion, wrote that he believes that can be changed via legislation. I join with the other 5 justices who say that this is part of the 14th Amendment. It's plainly written, and birthright citizenship is the law of the land. And that if you want to change it, you need to change it through the constitutional amendment process. You can't shortcut that process via a flimsy executive order or a piece of legislation that would not pass the constitutional muster. So what does that mean? It means that we will continue to be a country that supports, which most of the Western Hemisphere does, the idea of birthright citizenship. That if you are born somewhere in the United States, you are a citizen, even if your parents are not. This is a long-standing belief and has been backed up by well over 100 years of Supreme Court precedents. And so I'm happy to see this continuing. I think if this had gone the other way, it would have been a major shift in the understanding of our U.S. Constitution, and would have opened the floodgates for us to see future courts challenging other constitutional amendments, or and weakening them, including things like the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. So I'm glad that this 14th Amendment challenge was stayed off, and we continue to believe that people who are born here are themselves U.S. citizens. And I see the chatter online. Nothing has changed. Nothing changed. Nothing is different today than it was last week before this opinion came out. The law is the same. Okay. But if you were to look at the online right, you would think the sky is falling. You would think that the world has fundamentally changed overnight when it really hasn't. It just hasn't. And this is a lot of fear mongering, so much so that you see major right wing pundits coming out with just further and further crazier ideas of how the state can use its violent apparatus to control people who want to come here. Things like the need to sterilize any women who are visiting the country, or to arrest any pregnant women who give birth in this country. Or I even saw one guy saying death penalty to women who give birth. It's craziness. Um, Complete insanity. And so to that, I say, I'm proud that we have birthright citizenship. I'm happy for it. And you guys are going to have to give me 1 second of a break because fireworks are going off right outside my home and I got to let my animals in so they don't freak out. So I will be right back. Pause for 2 seconds. Sorry about that. That's live podcasting for you. But that's my bad. I had to go let the animals in, you guys. Sorry about that. But back to what I was saying. Um, Nothing has changed, but you wouldn't know that by seeing some of these MAGA folks who are freaking out about this birthright citizenship decision. It is, for me, something to be proud of. I'm proud that I live in a country where you're not judged by the blood that runs through your veins, but rather the hard work you can put in to building yourself up, to providing for your family. Those are real American values. That's the truth. And, it is, it's something that I'm proud of as an American. And I think we all should be. And if you're not, this idea, by the way, it just continues to prove out there this decision when you see the response from like the worst dregs of like the white nationalist folks out there, that it's true that, it's often white supremacists are the least supreme whites. These are people who only have their skin color and their heritage to be proud of, as opposed to hard work they've put into their lives, the families they've built, the businesses they've created, the merit that they've earned. That's really what America's about. It's not about blood. It's not about who your mommy or your daddy is. It's about who you are and what you're going to do and the hard work you're going to put in and the ability you have to make a difference in your life. That's the power of freedom. It's and it's not comfortable sometimes. This is the other thing that I will tell, these so-called white nationalists who say, we want our country for ourselves. The truth is that's never been America. America has always been a country of disparate people coming together on the idea that you have the freedom to be different from one another. And through those differences, we form the melting pot that made us the strongest economy, the most powerful economic and cultural force around the world. That's what makes America great. And you can deny it all you want, but it's the truth. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a patriot and I'm proud to be an American. I love this country. I don't like my government, but I love this country. I love the people. And you're seeing this notion so much when you're, if you go online, you're seeing a lot of videos on X and Twitter and TikTok, X and TikTok and Instagram, all over the place, of these people who are visiting for the World Cup. And they're coming from all over the world. And they are seeing the amazing people of America. They're seeing this amazing diversity. They're seeing how awesome this country is and all that it has to offer. And the best part about that is the people, the community, our neighbors, our, our local restaurants, our little slices of heaven in our neck of the woods. That is what makes America great. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we take the best from all over the world. We bring it here. And we throw a coat of red, white, and blue on it and make it ours. And then export it back out into the world. That's what it means to be a melting pot. That anywhere in the world can come here and find some sort of sense of community somewhere. And put down their roots. Start their American dream. It's what my forefathers did. It's what most people's ancestors did who live here in America, absent our native indigenous brothers and sisters. And those who live in First Nations also have a heritage that they can be proud of as Americans. And so for me, as we enter into the 4th of July in a couple of days, as we end this period that I call Freedom Summer every year, that starts with the Loving v. Virginia case and goes through Juneteenth and Stonewall and now into July the 4th. As we get there, it's something to be proud of. And we hear the same refrains every generation of immigrants. In the mid 19th century, it was the Irish, and then it was the Germans and the Poles and the Greeks and the Italians. And then it was, and then it became the Eastern Europeans and the Jews, and now the Latinos and the North Africans and the Caribbean. Every generation of immigrants is denigrated. People are told that they're the worst of their societies. They're not going to work hard, that they're not going to assimilate, that they're not going to become American. And every single time, they prove you wrong. Every single time, they prove you wrong. And as far as coming through the legal way, well, make the legal way easier. It's costly, it's time-consuming, it's complicated, and it's not the way most of our parents and grandparents came here. It's the absolute truth of it. And so, that's just being realistic. That my great grandparents and their parents did not come from Ireland and have to fill out complicated, costly forms and have to have an entire legal process and sit in front of a judge. They came off of a boat, and there they were, and they assimilated, and their kids were Americans. And it doesn't need to be much more complicated than that. That's the truth. And there's not some sort of pie that is finite, by the way. People who denigrate immigrants think that, oh, well, there's only so much. And if they come in, they're going to take a bigger slice of the pie, not realizing that immigrants also come here and start businesses and work and build and contribute and actually grow the pie overall. And so I'm telling you to not be afraid. If you're scared of immigrants, don't be. There's no reason to be. There just isn't. You're being fooled by your government to be afraid of somebody you don't even know. And why? So that government can exert more control over you, extract more of the wealth from your pocket, from your labor, to pay for a police state, to crack down on the liberty of citizen and non-citizen alike. That's the truth. And I see a lot of comments here saying I'm crazy or I've drank the Kool-Aid. No, the truth is I've done the research, and I live with immigrant neighbors, and I always have been, and I'm not scared. And you shouldn't be either, because we all make America great. And that includes those of us who came here from somewhere else and put down their roots and built something up. That's what every generation of American does, whether their parents were born here or not. And we should continue that. But that's the truth. Don't let government sell you on fear of your neighbors. Don't let government sell you on the fear of immigrants. That's the truth. And I'm just going to end with this. I'm proud to be an American. I love my country. I love its people. I love all the things that make it into one giant, amazing melting pot of culture. And I think we should all be proud of that. But also, we don't have to love our government. We can absolutely distrust them and understand that our government's probably the worst part about America, and fight against those abuses. That being said, I wish you all a good night. Even those haters in the comments who, just randomly are popping up and saying, as soon as I say the word immigrant enough, you start getting those folks in the comments. But yeah, live your life. Be a free person. Don't expect the government to take care of it for you. And have a good night. Peace, love, and liberty to all of you.